Hello, I'm Howard. I've worked in UK railway engineering for nearly 20 years, in everything from maintenance and fault response to project work, renewals, and management. I don't claim to know everything, but I can hopefully share some knowledge. Now, today, the 24th Monday of June, um, marks the beginning of Rail Safety Week. And for Rail Safety Week, I thought I'd do some videos on safety related items. So we've got here a British Rail PTS training video, PTS standing for Personal Track Safety, which is the basic course you do when you work on the railway. In order to work on the railway, you must have that to go on track. Now, safety has come on light years since even I started back in the mid 2000s. Um, and if you ask people that have been on significantly longer than that, they'll tell you how in the mid 2000s safety had already come on light years from stuff in the 80s and the 70s. So it's always improving. So I wanted to have a look and just compare it against today and see what some of the differences are. This video I've not seen. It's a very old video, so we'll have a look. Rather eerie music there.
Forgot my spanner. Let's go and get it.
Oi, Ian, if you see my gloves.
You,
Ian!
see, he's gone back on track there without any kind of safe system of work. He's just run out. There's no controller of site safety, no lookout, no method of warning. He's just concentrated on getting his spanner and the gloves. Really terrible to see.
Accidents happen. That could have been you. But accidents don't have to happen. The type of clothing you wear on the track is very important. The more visible you are, the more likely you will be seen by drivers. The high visibility clothing provided must be worn at all times, must be clean.
Yeah, so not much has changed there. You must still wear high visibility clothing. It must be clean and fit for purpose, the reflective strips in order. But you can see a huge difference here compared to now. So what they're wearing there is what some of the older guys I think would call a diddy vest, which is just a small vest that goes around the top bit. Nowadays, it's head to toe orange. So the hard hats are white. You'll notice none of these guys are wearing hard hats because back then you only wore it for certain tasks. I think even when I started, you only if you were patrolling, doing a foot patrol, you didn't wear it. It was only for certain tasks. So these days you'd wear an orange trouser and then an orange upper half of your body as well. And they've been trying to get in for quite a while. Even your t-shirts have to have full length orange sleeve, so your arms are orange for if you're acknowledging a train and putting your arm out. So we wear a lot more orange now than they did then.
And worn correctly. It is an essential part of being safe. Red and green clothing should be avoided.
Still
These
the same
colours
today
have a special meaning on the railway.
with red and green.
Track layout can take many forms: single line, two line, or multi-track layouts. Whatever the layout, there's a safe way of walking on or near the line. There are three main areas of the track: the 6 foot, This is the area between the tracks. The forefoot, which is the area between the rails. And the cess. This is the safest place for walking. If the cess is blocked off anywhere, the best place is the forefoot. When possible, face the direction from which trains normally approach, but beware that on some occasions, trains come from either direction.
Yeah, so the intention was, I think, to walk facing traffic, and you needed to look up every 5 seconds to watch for approaching trains. These days, this probably wouldn't happen. And as the narrator said, what you can get, even if you're on a line where it's normally approaching trains from the front, you can get instances of single line working or wrong direction moves on trains where they can go the wrong direction up the normally signalled way. So not a good idea, especially not these days with the speed of trains.
The most dangerous area to be in is the 6-foot. Never walk here. It only needs trains to be coming in both directions, and you could be the filling in a very nasty sandwich.
What they used to say, and it might allude to here at some point, is if you ever did get in the situation where you were trapped between two trains, or trapped between the trains and the platform, you would lie down between the two trains, or lie down between the trains and the platform, because you can see here the width of the trains at the top is wider than the train at the bottom. So this is clearly the best part to lie. I mean, it's not a scale diagram, but it's representative of the sort of dimensions of the train. You're best off lying down.
Sandwich. If, however, you do get caught in the 6-foot or in any position with insufficient space to stand clear, always lie down, but never lie down in the 4-foot. When walking across the track, avoid points and crossings, and for safety, tread on the ballast. Do not tread on the sleepers or rails. They may be slippy. And when a train does come...
Not much has changed there. Ballast to ballast. You still walk ballast to ballast. Don't walk on the wooden sleepers. Some of them wooden sleepers are like sheet glass. They're very, very slippy. The bane of many railwaymen, those sleepers when they're wet. So that advice still holds true.
This is the person in charge of work, known as the picar. His job is to make sure that the group are safe while on or about the line. It is his responsibility to set up a safe system of work, and it's yours to act on his instructions.
The track next to it is the up line, and trains travelling that direction, and the line speed is 20 miles an hour. You've got your spanners, that's smashing. Now Bob's going to be our sight lookout, and Dennis will be our distant man. You've got your cards with you, lad?
Absolutely thrilled to be there.
Yeah, 93, that's fine. And your debts? Just check your debts.
A lot of this is similar to now. That's a person in charge brief that we'd now call a COS brief. COS, Controller of Site Safety, is the modern equivalent, or even more modern than that, the PIC, or the Safe Work Leader, depending on the area of the country you're in. But yeah, that he was given a brief saying the directions of the lines and the line speeds, appointing lookouts, describing the method of warning of which you will be warned by the lookout, checking the detonators, checking the competencies. So if they have their competency cards and say their lookout competence is out of date, then they wouldn't be allowed to perform that duty. And that's the same now. Nowadays it's done electronically, but it's the same principle. So this is pretty much still as it was, just modernised a bit.
When you're blown out, you acknowledge and move to a position of safety, and that's okay.
Good brief.
Right, Dennis? From the sighting
Dennis looks thrilled to be there still.
Meters. I've paced it out, it's just round by that bush over there. That gives us your sighting distance. So if you maintain your position of safety in the cess, and we'll give you a wave when everything's set up, and then we can check that we can see each other.
Before work is started, the PICAR will test the system to make sure that adequate warning will be given for the group to get to a position of safety.
Here, use
Yeah.
your position of safety in the set. We'll just give Dennis a wave and then he can make sure. That's fine. We can all see one another. Right. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to the lads and I'm going to ask you.
Some areas of the country will still use Lookout, but a lot of them have abandoned it altogether. I know certainly with some of the departments that I work with, some of them haven't used Lookout and flags since, well, it'll be 4 years, since about August 2020 was the last time that some departments used flags at all. It's all line blockages now. Line blockage being blocking from one signal to another signal or set of points, or 2 reference points on the signaling panel. And most of that is done with additional protection. So the signaller would protect you for a line block. He would place his signal to danger so the train can't pass it because it's at red. And then additionally to that, you as the signaling technician or the track technician could apply something that would hold the signal to danger even if the signaller tried to clear it. An example is what's known as a T-cod, a track circuit operating device, and you clip that onto the 2 rails, and it shorts out the track circuit like the train wheels. And then even if the signaller tries to press his buttons and send a train into that section, he won't be able to, because the interlocking thinks it's occupied by a train already and it's trying to avoid a crash, so it won't happen. So most line blockages in a lot of places now are taken with additional protection as well as line block, and they don't use Lookout, and they won't going forward. That's how the industry's going. So there will be a day when the last Lookout has waved the last flag.
Anyone working on the track will be under the supervision of a PICAR. This is a signals and telecommunications group testing a track circuit.
So that's what happened with that guy in the beginning that ran onto the track. He ran on there without the PICAR, the person in charge of the work, and they're the person who is responsible for setting up the safe system and the safety of the people on the track. And he just ran back on for his spanner and some gloves. So therein lies the problem.
Sometimes, though, people can become too engrossed in their work. By trying to finish the test even after acknowledging the Lookout's warning, this technician put himself at risk. What's more, he put the PICAR at risk and caused unnecessary anxiety to the driver.
Yeah, things like that now would be called a near miss. If you've had to get out the way of a train quickly without adequate warning time, these days things like that would go quite high up the chain, and there'd be investigations and reports from Rail Accident Investigation Branch, from internal whichever company has had the near miss. It's a very serious incident. Lookout warnings.
When you are out on the track, the lookout gives you a warning that a train is coming and on which line. In this case, the PICAR has selected 25 seconds warning for his group. But this may be increased depending on the location and what you are doing.
So you'll see that it says he's selected 25 seconds. This is because when you're working out how much sighting distance you need, you have to work out how much time you need in order to work out the distance, because it's like a speed equals distance divided by time calculation, essentially. So you need to be in a position of safety 10 seconds minimum, and then you need 5 seconds to drop your tools and get into a position of safety, and then it'll be fine if your lookout's looking both ways, so that's 25 seconds, and then another 5. You just keep adding up, and I think the maximum you can get to, if I remember rightly, is 45 seconds, and after that, it's if you need any more than 45 seconds to get off the line, and to stop what you're doing, that's too much. It can't be done.
You should also acknowledge the driver's warning by raising your arm. Because the train has passed, doesn't mean
Very
it's safe.
important that, acknowledging the driver's warning. The drivers get a bit uppity if you don't acknowledge the warnings, and quite right. So when a train sounds its horn, sometimes even off-duty railwaymen will just go, "Oop," like that. The arm goes up because you're so used to hearing a horn and then raising your arm to acknowledge the horn of the driver. It used to be, when I first started, I saw it. People would not acknowledge the horn and just stand out. And I've seen drivers yell at people out the window before, "Why didn't you acknowledge my horn?" And get mad about it. So, yeah, that's still a thing. You still must do that because the driver will get nervous and perhaps apply the brake unnecessarily unless you acknowledge it and say, "Yes, I've seen you. I know you're there."
On some occasions, it won't be possible to hear the
Yeah,
lookout's
there
warning.
you go. There's been incidents like this in the past few years that I won't go too much into, where people have had the back to traffic operating rail plant like this, small plant, ear defenders on, impact wrench going in the background, and it's not a good place to be when you need to hear the warning of the lookout. So I think this is probably going to talk about touch lookouts, where it's done by touch when it's this noisy.
Here, an additional lookout is appointed to warn
Yeah.
by touch. The line speed at this point is 90 miles an hour. If we were to rely on hearing a train in order to get out of the way, then we could be in for a shock. Let's listen to a high-speed train and note the time that it takes to get from the point when it's first heard to the camera.
There you go. Yeah.
It's 4 seconds before the train is sufficiently loud to be heard above the normal background sound.
Quite right. You can't hear them coming, especially not now. They're 125 mile an hour. Not reliably anyway. You can sometimes hear the whistle in the rails. So quite far away, you won't hear the train. You'll hear the rails whistling.
This group is about to carry out an inspection in a tunnel. The warning time has been established to give 25 seconds for the group to reach refuges in the tunnel. The lookout is posted at the entrance.
That would never be allowed now, looking out and going into the refuges in a tunnel. Absolutely not.
Some tunnels have a permanent warning system called TOWS, or Train-Operated Warning System. This sound is heard to show the system is activated and working correctly. When a train approaches, it changes to this.
Like a lot of safety alarms, it has a noise that constantly sounds, and then a second tone or noise when there's danger and you have to move out of the way. The purpose being of the tone that sounds all the time to let you know the system's still active. Because if it's silent, and then only alarms when a train comes, when it's silent, you don't know if it's still on. But at least if it's making some kind of noise continually, you know it's still on. There's a lot of things like that. I think they have that similar things on submarines and probably in a lot of safety critical environments.
Poor visibility, whether through smoke or weather conditions, can significantly reduce the sighting distance and therefore the time the lookout has to warn the group.
I've actually had this before where sighting distance has been impeded on track, and it was a weird one. It was a very hot day, very hot, and there was a passing shower, and the rain onto the ballast combined with the sun created a load of steam. So once it started drying out, the sighting distance was impeded by steam, because it had rained onto the ballast that much in such a short time, and it was that warm. And you should have seen our boss's face when we told him the job was delayed due to ballast steam. That was a good one.
It's easy to say that if the correct procedures are carried out, then accidents shouldn't occur. The fact is that most accidents do happen because the correct procedures are ignored. So to be safe, carry out these simple procedures. Check you are wearing clean, high-visibility clothing correctly. Always obey the person in charge of work. He is responsible for the safety of the group and can only do his job properly if you carry out his instructions.
No question, no problem.
It's a bit less like that now, a bit less chain of command. I mean, the controller of site safety or the PIC or the safe work leader still in charge of safety, but there's not the sort of, you will listen to them. There's much more challenge culture now where you can ask questions and challenge what they're saying and be like, you haven't told us about this, and challenge them on things that you might not be comfortable with or that you feel they've got wrong. It's not just blind obedience. There is a to and fro in these safety briefings, and you're free to ask each other questions. It's not all one-sided.
And learn to respect the potential hazards. Remember, safety must always come first. The railway is a dangerous place. You are at risk if you let your concentration lapse or you ignore the rules.
What happened? It's a very, very famous old railway saying that the rule book is written in blood, because all these rules they get brought in, they're mostly from accidents, and then they have the subsequent investigations and reviews, and then they come up with new rules to prevent those accidents happening again. And that's the same with any industry. The nuclear industry is like that. They used to have loads of accidents, and now not so many, because they're more controlled, because the rule book's been written in the misfortune of others who didn't have those rules to keep them safe. So rules are very important. And safety is always paramount, and for two reasons. There's obviously the moral and ethical obligation of safety, where you want people to get home safe, and there's also the business aspect of it, where if you look at a diagram between sort of a graph between safety and performance, they go hand in hand. And there's a direct correlation between the safety of your workforce and performance, because a safe workforce that isn't getting injured all the time is at work more and more productive, because they've not got broken legs and twisted ankles and bad backs, and it eliminates a lot of your workforce's problems by just keeping them safe. And that's the start of Rail Safety Week, so I'll see if there's any other good videos. Cheers.